publishers want you to do, and will you?
No, that hasn't come up, Barbara. I mean, I probably haven't finished enough of the memoirs about how I feel about things that I'm investigating. But they haven't really mentioned it. Why should they? I can do that when I'm 80, if I ever do it. I doubt that I would. I would have no pleasure in that. I like to write thinking that someone who's reading it is maybe being helped by it. That's sort of been my motivation.
Are you considered an author or an actress, and which would you rather be thought of in the infinite scheme when you are remembered?
Hundreds of years from now.
Somebody asked me if you were really Jane Austen in the past. I said I didn't think so. You weren't, were you?
Oh, there have been so many wonderful jokes. I laugh at them all. I think I'd rather be remembered as a person who just tried to figure out the visible and the invisible. It's a wonderful adventure. That's what I'd like to be remembered by. You
certainly are that. Stay with us and join the discussion, because when we come back, we will be joined by the head of one of America's top publishing houses, which lists authors Tom Clancy, Kurt Vonnegut, and Elizabeth Taylor, by a literary agent whose clients include Sidney Sheldon and Danielle Steele, and the media critic for Newsweek magazine.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Lexus.
It takes you almost an hour to get to work, which leaves you with two choices. You can either own a house closer to work, or you can own the road in between.
Charlie, the Johnsons are having something delivered. It's a new air conditioner.
That's nice, dear.
What system's so great they'd buy it this early?
Must be a Lennox.
Like I was saying, I just bought a new air conditioner. Got a great deal. They say my energy bills could really drop.
A Lennox must be a Lennox.
Oh, yes.
Lennox Heating and Air Conditioning.
This is Lipton Tea Time. This is the taste. This is the cool of a satisfied face. This is refreshment that's one of a kind. This is Lipton Tea Time. So clean, so crisp, the taste sublime. This is Lipton Tea Time. Lipton.
The 1991 four-door Chevy S10 Blazer. Engineered with standard four-wheel anti-lock brakes. Open one up and see why nobody's winning like the heartbeat of America.
Heterosexual teens increasingly at risk for AIDS. How do you get kids to realize it could happen to them? Watch Peter Jennings on ABC's World News Tonight tomorrow.
Joining us now from our studios here in New York are Phyllis Gran, the CEO and president of Putnam Berkeley Books, and her publishing career, by the way, began in 1958 as a secretary at Doubleday. Morton Janklow, literary agent for some of America's top-selling authors, from President and Mrs. Reagan to Jackie Collins and Judith Krantz. And Jonathan Alter, a senior writer at Newsweek who covers the publishing industry as part of the media. Mr. Janklow, you are probably the top literary agent, or certainly one of them. If you were advising an author, what sells, what doesn't sell? As I recall, you had an author who wanted to write a book on spirituality, and you said, I don't think it'll sell. So what are the big sellers now?
I don't think you can categorize them that easily, Barbara. I think that good books always sell. I think that the lists are not much different now than they were 20 years ago. As a matter of fact, I actually did that. I pulled the New York Times bestseller list of 20 years ago and compared it. And in category by category, the books are about the same as they were.
But you didn't have tell-all biographies of celebrities.
Oh, yes, you did. Oh, yes, you did. You didn't quite.
The way they are today?
Yeah, a tell-all book 20 years ago wasn't quite as tell-all-y as they are now, but nothing was. I mean, times have changed. So that a tell-all book 20 years ago would seem quite tame today. But the category of book was the same. I think there's always a place for important and serious literary fiction and nonfiction, and there's always a place for books which I call, for want of a better word, entertaining. And I think that the taste of the American public, in actual fact, are probably elevated now. We have a much more educated population than we used to have, with much broader interests, increased, among other ways, by television.
Jonathan Alter, you write the conventional wisdom column in Newsweek. What's up, what's down, what's in, what's out. Put this in terms of the publishing industry. What's the conventional wisdom, and do you agree with Morton Janklow that things are pretty much the same as they've always been?
Well, I think the old conventional wisdom would be snobby, pretentious, literary pretensions, and obsessed with cat books that sell. And the new conventional wisdom would be snobby, insular, pretentious, and obsessed with cat books that sell, especially if they're written by Shirley MacLaine and can be turned into a mini-series. What we have is an effect where publishing is becoming much more like Hollywood. It's interesting that Swifty Lazar was interviewed earlier, because there really is a coming together of these two forces. And the commercialization of publishing, it really does have consequences for smaller authors, because so many resources are now put in to marketing and promotion that it becomes harder to really have your voice heard. Even if you get published, it can sink like a stone.
Jonathan, I think that was always the case. There's always a tremendous tendency on the part of authors to complain that books are not out, they're not being marketed properly, nobody knows about them, there's no advertising. When they do all of that, then people say, well, the marketing is overtaking literature, and there's no way literature will survive.
Phyllis, you're not only the head of Putnam Berkeley Books, you're an editor yourself. Now, we have this vision of the young Hemingway and the young Fitzgerald and Thomas Wolfe being nurtured by their editors and discovered by their editors. Does that happen today?
I really believe it does. Most of the authors that we publish, we've been publishing for 15 years, and I like to think that we nurture them and that we keep them happy. We've been publishing Alice Hoffman, to take a literary novelist, for about 6 or 7 books, and she finally hit the bestseller list last year. In some ways, I think it is easier to put on the Times bestseller list a literary unknown than a more commercial kind of fiction, though of course being written by a major celebrity helps.
You know, Phyllis, it's true that authors always complain, but pretty much all of them agree that there's much less attention to the careful issue of editing a manuscript with real tender loving care, and much more attention to marketing the book and assuming that if it was given a big advance, then we'll promote it. If it wasn't given a big advance, we won't promote it as much. Those are very common complaints, and they are relatively new.
Let me ask you something about promotion, and Shirley MacLaine is still with us, and that is the whole business of television. If you've got an author whom you know is good on television, will that mean that you'll spend more money on it? Shirley, I'd like to know how important television is to your books and what the shows are that you say, hey, if I'm on this show, I can sell more.
Well, what's important is that the viewer will begin to respond to your sincerity or not. When I went into this line of metaphysics, I was a little frightened and trepidatious about it because it was shattering my image of being a down-to-earth kind of person and actress. But I understood from being up in front of people that if they understand you're real, then they know you're not lying. I object to the idea that if something is done from the heart and sells a lot of books, that it then is a commercial venture. It just means that it's touched more people, and so they pay money to buy the books. But that's what it's all about. It's the marriage of art, communication, and words.
Phyllis, how important is television, Phyllis Gran, and what are the shows that you really want to get an author on?
Well, you know 2020, you know your specials, because we always are putting authors on them. Donahue and Oprah particularly sell books. But you also have to realize that you can sell books simply because they get wonderful reviews. And they can
sell books without the author going on television at all?
Absolutely. We have one, Dean Koontz, who goes to #1 every year, really refuses to do anything.
Barbara,
Tom Clancy does very little.
I think Danielle Steele, who was probably the most successful commercial author in history, never does rarely does anything to promote her book. She's once in a while will do a morning television show, but that's it.
Stephen
She
King
doesn't even
does.
do many print interviews.
But the promotional budgets for those people are way out of line from what they would have been 20 or 30 years ago.
Well, everything is way out of line. The book was $2.95 20 years ago, and now it's $24.95.
Even proportionally,
Okay,
it's way
so
out of
right
line.
now it all seems that, with the exception of you, Jonathan, everybody thinks things are kind of hunky-dory. So when we come back, let's talk about what does frighten you, or are there any trends that you really say, uh-oh, if that keeps on, we're in trouble? We'll continue in a moment.
This is the famous NutraSweet Gumball, the first little product that introduced everyone to the great taste of NutraSweet. Well, then we started thinking, hey, this could be big. So we started talking to people. First to soft drink people, then cereal people and cookie people. We talked to dessert people and cocoa people and coffee people and cake people, breakfast people and tea people and yogurt people. Man, like, you'd be amazed how many food people there are to talk to. So you're probably saying, okay.
We are back with author Shirley MacLaine, publisher Phyllis Gran, literary agent Morton Janklow, and critic Jonathan Alter. Phyllis and Morton Janklow, I'd like to ask you this in terms of the anything goes feeling that a lot of people have, that anything can be published. Is there any subject, any issue, anything that is taboo to you, Morton Janklow, as someone who represents authors, and Phyllis Gran as someone who publishes them?
Oh, I think there are many things. I wouldn't describe it as taboo, but there are levels of taste. And I mean, the only thing that distinguishes publishing from printing is the exercise of judgment. And I don't think that anything that somebody commits to paper is worthy of publication or appropriate for publication. So I think the exercise of editorial judgment is a significant part of what a publisher does.
Phyllis Gran, what would you turn down? What subject matter, or what kind
I
of...
probably would not have published American Psycho, but I had no problem seeing it published by somebody else.
Why wouldn't you have published it? It's a book that was turned down by Simon & Schuster and then published by another company.
By Knopf, very successfully.
Yeah.
As a house run by a woman, I really just found it hard to want to put our name on that book. But I didn't join some of the other people in the industry who were offended that it was published. I just didn't want to publish it myself.
Jonathan Alter, before we came to this segment, I said, let's talk about what bothers you or what frightens you about this industry if you look ahead.
Well, Barbara, just to give you an example, at Newsweek, when we fact-check stories, we used to consider a fact to have been verified if it appeared in a book. We can no longer do that because, as many of your viewers know, when you read a book now, you see all kinds of errors. Some of them are typographical, some of them are factual errors, but there's just considerably less care overall given to publishing these books. The fever of deal-making, the agents and mini-series have overtaken, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, overtaken the editorial function, and it's very unfortunate.
Except, if you publish a book by an expert, you really are dependent upon that person to verify their own facts.
Editors don't do that. Lawyers, it seems, go through all of the, the tell-all books just to make certain that somebody won't sue.
Well, those are libel and defamation issues, and they are really usually vetted by lawyers, as we say.
No, but the lawyers, for instance, in the Kitty Kelly book, the lawyers would not verify anything that she said about Nancy Reagan because they made an assumption at the beginning of the process that Nancy Reagan or Frank Sinatra in an earlier case would not sue. All they did was try to...
Most don't.
Right. They just tried to prevent minor characters appearing in the book from being libeled. So you have a tremendous lack of responsibility when it comes to checking the factual accuracy of books published.
Morton Janklow, do you see anything wrong with the publishing business today?
Oh, I don't think it's ever been perfect, and it's very far from perfect now. I think that the kinds of concerns you have, that I have particularly, deal with the quality of people who are entering the business. I think it's a very low-paying, entry-level business, and somebody has to be mad about books and literature to think about going into it. A highly rated college graduate now can do much, much better economically in other fields, and the result is they're not attracting, I don't think, the best of and the most literate of our college graduates, and that's a real concern.
Also, you're getting these sort of would-be poets who come from very rich families mostly and can afford to work for these slave wages.
That's an
Meanwhile, their
ancient tradition,
bosses,
Jonathan.
but their bosses are making huge incomes. It's really an obscenity within the business.
Shirley MacLaine, in the time that we have left, when you write a book, do you think at all, this'll make a mini-series, I will make a mint?
Believe it or not, that doesn't occur to me because I'm taking such a risk with most of the stuff I write anyway. It was very difficult for me to go along with making a mini-series out on a limb. It was very difficult. It took 1.5 years for me to make that decision because I had gone out on a limb in front of the reading public already. I was going to go out in front of 10 million more people or more. The big problem with publishing for me these days is the numbers of people who are not reading.
Yeah.
How can we get them to read more?
Well,
so
but all the
more?
readership, all surveys indicate there are more people reading now than ever. The advent of the chain bookstore makes books more accessible to people in locations where they would not normally
Even
find
with
them.
television, they're still reading more.
Even with television, they're still reading more.
Phyllis Grant, I'd like to end with you because I'm going to ask the question that everybody sitting at home with their typewriter or their pen asks. They have a great book in them. How do they get it published?
Find an agent or send it into a publishing house.
Okay, you know, if they just call up and say, hello, Morton Janklow, I've got this great book, you're not going to take it. What is the best way to get a book published?
Get to know a good editor.
Well, for about 10 years, I felt it was kind of an obligation to read everything that came in over the transom. And you'll be interested to know that in that time, unrecommended books that just arrived from people who thought they had a great book in them I've never found anything in that slush pile that was worthy of publication.
Ordinary people came out of a slush pile at Viking.
Yeah, but we remember those stories
rare.
because they're so rare.
Barbara, publishing is the vessel of our culture, and it has to make money, but it has to set its sights higher than that. This is our entire tradition that we're passing down. It's really a very important industry.
I think on that point we will thank you all and hope that you will find more authors that out of that slush pile will become not just bestsellers but fine literary works. We'll be back with a program note right after this. Tonight, with Peter Jennings, looks at the growing threat to teenagers. Well, that's our report for tonight. I'm Barbara Walters in New York. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This has been Nightline. If you wish a videocassette version of Nightline, the cost is $14.98 plus $3.95 shipping and handling. If you wish a printed transcript, please send $4 to 267 Broadway, New York, New York 10007.
Nightline is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
America's watching ABC.